Edward was a barred rock chick that I got a little over a year ago. He was curious and crazy, but he sure learned a lot and grew up to be a great rooster. He protected his flock like none other. So this channel is a nod to Edward. Edward, wherever you are, I hope that my curiosity could help me learn as much as you learned to be a great rooster.
Sorry, I keep messing with that. That's the first video clip I made with the phone being um, vertical instead of horizontal. I didn't realize it would show gaps on both sides of the screen. So now every time I play it, I don't want to delete it, but it's there. So here we go. Okay, I promised you guys I'd be back to talk about Cell. And I left off before with just kind of like touching on the intro and the book and the movie. And I have since finished the book. I kind of left off on the first video after they get to the college. I think it's Gaiten College or something like that. Hold on, I'm going to look it up here real quick. Gaiten Academy. Okay. So Gaiten Academy is in the book and the movie one of the stops that Tom and Clay and Alice make during their journey north. And they're not real sure where they're going, except that Clay knows he needs to find his son Johnny. Interestingly enough, in the movie, he doesn't make much mention about finding his wife Sharon. In the book, it's almost like as big of a priority as finding Johnny. So they do emphasize in the book a lot more dedication to his wife Sharon, where in the movie it's just all about Johnny. So yeah, that's something you'll see. Let me go to my notes and I'll share my screen. Unfortunately, I have to say I didn't find hardly any clips from the movie Cell on YouTube. I mean, you can YouTube search Ready Player One and you can find clips from all over in the movie, battle scenes, funny scenes, love scenes, shorts, hundreds of shorts. You look up Cell and all you can find are trailers. In fact, go figure, most of the stuff you're going to find if you try to look it up in YouTube is from the movie The Cell with J-Lo in it. And that's not what we're looking at. So, notes. Most of the stuff I'm going to talk about in the movie, I'll kind of touch on what they see, but I mean, most people have already watched the movie. And I'll explain what the book, and I'll even show you the difference that the book has written rather than the movie. So let me just cap in the movie, and then we'll revisit the same ideas. So I've got 4 bullet points that talk about my hands disappearing on the screen. Samuel L. Jackson's mouth has got my hand in his mouth. Anyway, in the movie, of course, they meet Headmaster Ardai and Jordan. Jordan is the young student kid. So they meet these two, and you know they're relatively educated about what might be going on. And Ardai explains to them that they work in unison, and he shows them by stabbing one of them in the leg during the night when they're all asleep in that field. Then Ardai proposes this idea that we should try to kill as many as possible. Alice is on board with it. She's still really angry that these things got her mother. And so she's like, we should kill him. We should do it. Poor Clay and Tom, Samuel L. Jackson and John Cusack, are the ones that have to drive the fuel truck. And in the movie, they drive the fuel truck over the bodies and just start spilling fuel. And then they just light everybody on fire. Which eventually causes an explosion when the fire creeps up the fuel line and reaches the tanker. That explosion causes so much shrapnel that one kills Headmaster Ardai. And of course, Jordan is a little bit distraught about it. He ends up having nobody else to protect him, so he joins the little flock of 4 that end up moving on afterwards. There's a lot more working parts in the book, and I'll get to that in a minute. They blow up, and what they call the phonies, Phonies, Onies in the book. I forgot what they called them in the movie, but these bodies that they burned, they just end up burning, and it doesn't seem to have much of a repercussion effect. In the book, there's huge repercussion for their group after they do that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So the next stop is they finally reach Clay's house. Now, in the movie, there's two things that I noticed big differences about when they reach Clay's house in the movie. First, the message that Johnny leaves for Clay is written in magnets on the refrigerator. But he pretty much covers the same message. You know, I'm going to Cashwhack or whatever. Actually, he says I'm with, the difference is he says in the book, he says he's with a couple of his friends. He doesn't say where he's going, but he indicates that he's going to a local town hall where most of the people in town are going. In the movie, he says he's going to Cashwhack, which doesn't really come into the book until later. And then he says something about mom being one of them. In the book, he doesn't say that necessarily the mom is one of them. He just says he doesn't know where she is. So I need to hydrate. So there is a message from Johnny in the movie, which is the same as the book. Another difference is in the movie, the Raggedy Man or the red hooded man comes out and attacks Clay, but turns out to be his wife as a phony. In the book, that's not the case. He doesn't find his wife until much later in the book. So there's two differences there, but one similarity is there definitely is a message from Johnny. Clay definitely makes it to his house and doesn't find either his wife nor his son there. So, of course, they move on. After going to Clay's house in the movie, then it takes a bizarre turn that is not mentioned in the book whatsoever. They end up at that bar. And there's some people in the bar. There's even that one yuppie woman that's kind of flirting with Samuel L. Jackson. She's like, hello there. And she's tipsy. They're drinking. They don't care anymore. And then according to the movie, they take refuge there. It kind of sounded to me like they were planning to head to Cashwhack later. Cashyak? Am I saying it wrong? I don't even know. But for tonight, let's eat, drink, relax, get some rest, right? Then in the middle of the night, right, in the movie, the yuppie lady wakes up. She hears something and she goes to the door and she puts her ear to it. And the last thing you see, she's like mesmerized by the sound, which we can only assume. When I watched the movie, I thought one of them was holding a cell phone up to the other side of the door, or that now they no longer needed the cell phones to transmit that sound that converts everybody. Maybe they were right outside the door doing it through their mouth. I didn't know. I just saw her, and you notice in the movie after that, she was one of them. And then during their struggle and their fight, after they realize that she's one of them, and then there's another one that becomes one of them, the woman takes a big hit at the back of Alice's head, and pretty much that ends her demise. Alice is later brought outside during the day. You could see her just kind of fading out, and she dies. Jordan's upset. So the only ones left is Clay, Tom, and Jordan, the two main characters and the kid from the academy. So that's kind of Alice's demise in the movie. I'm going to close my notes. I'm just realizing you guys can't even see my notes. You're just watching me. So do I want to save the notes? No, I don't need them. I'm talking to you. So let me get over to, excuse me one second. I'm going to share my screen with y'all. You ready for this? It says present. Like I'm giving a presentation. I feel so important. Okay. I want to share the entire screen. Here we will go into the tunnel of hell, as I like to call it. There I am, way over here, and over there, and over there, and over there, and over there. So now you guys see what I'm looking at. Let's go to the first reading screen that I wanted to show you guys. So in the book, Instead of actually burning the bodies, they blow them up. But they also use two trucks, and they do fill them with fuel, and that's how they end up blowing it up. They just pretty much park the trucks. They don't drive all over on top of the bodies. They pretty much park the trucks at each end of the field and then cause the explosion from the outside inward and blow up the bodies. So it's not like all the shrapnel is the issue. In the book, it was more like the fire. There was a huge heat wave that caused kind of a sunburn on all their skins. And here you can see on this part, Alice says, we got them. She was wiping splatters of gore. There was body parts flying all over the place, blood and chunks and everything. So that pretty much is similar to what happened in the movie, but it's a little different. So then if you go on down, it says, Clay tells Alice to come on. We have to go back to the lodge and get our shit together. We have to get out of here. So in the book, I don't know if you realize this, but once they blew up the body, they all heard or felt this weird, like, screaming sensation. Like something wasn't right. Right? And Clay feels it. And in the book here, you could see where he tells Alice, you know, we got to go. Something's wrong. Right? And he says, we have to go back to the lodge and get our shit together. We have to get out of here. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, he had to say them again and hear if they had a ring of truth. And the second time they sounded more true. So they're having these weird psychological, this is the beginning in the book, the beginning of where the group starts having these weird verbal and mental connection issues. And there's a reason why later. He feels like she might not have heard. She looked exultant. She was kind of borderline having psychological problems because of all this killing and maiming and blood and gore. And then Tom grips Clay's arm, and it hurt the way a sunburn hurt. And he says, what's wrong with you? And Clay says, I think we made a mistake. So I'm going to close that one. And it will go back to the tunnel of hell here. And I'll explain. Basically, after they blew up the bodies, Clay has a nagging kind of feeling like they know. Like basically all these phonies know. What they don't talk about, and it happens in the book before this blowing up the bodies, is in order to get those two trucks down at the gas station, they had an experience. They actually went out during the day because they knew they would need as much time as possible to set up and rig the explosion at night. So they were actually outside of the academy, and they went a couple blocks down the road to try to obtain these two trucks from a gas station, which they had to kind of duck, hide, and be careful. When they got there were two phonies that were actually coming along down the road. Now, they're not like the zombies where if they don't see you or you don't see them, it's kind of morphed into a situation in the book now where if you don't bother them, they don't bother you. It's not like they're trying to get you, but at the same time, they'll come and get you if you get too close. So whatever. The exchange in the book is that there was a man and a woman that were coming down the road, and they could tell that they were affected by the cell phone signal. And the man had Twinkies and he was eating them. They're at a point in the book where they actually need to eat. They're not like the zombies in The Walking Dead where they're eating people. There was a part earlier where in Tom's garden, he looks out the window and he sees them eating vegetables out of his garden. So that's when they're like, they're eating now? What is going on? So this guy's eating a Twinkie, and then the woman wants a Twinkie, but it's weird. It's like they can't develop their speech yet. So they were making these noises to each other, and the woman was like, and they're like grunting at each other, like almost, redeveloping all over again. And the weird part was he didn't want to give her a Twinkie. She got mad, and then this strange telepathic event starts happening. They felt this electric tension in the air, Tom and Clay, while they were hiding, yards away behind a truck. and they started to see things like papers move even though there's no wind, and dust was starting to swirl, and things, until finally the guy backed down and gave her a Twinkie, and then things went to normal. And it was, they described it as like they could feel it, like it was in their head and in front of them. So after they blow up the bodies, Clay gets that panicky feeling like, we gotta go. I mean, they know we did this kind of feeling. So putting a pin in that and remembering that part, we'll go on to the next stage and go to pretty much the next morning. Now, let me caveat this real quick by that night, Clay and Tom decided that they were going to leave and they were going to take Alice, and they wanted to take the headmaster and Jordan with them. However, the headmaster is such an old man that he can only travel only by car. So the headmaster comes to Clay and Tom at night and says, look, I want you to take Jordan with you, but I know he's not going to go. So tonight I'm going to take an overdose of pills, but in the morning I expect you to find me and tell Jordan it was a heart attack. And so he has this plan to sacrifice himself so that Jordan will go with them. Well, by morning, I guess before that, actually, Jordan has a nightmare and Alice is awake, and then Tom and Clay go to comfort him, and then they start hearing like banging at the front door early in the morning, kind of before the sun comes out, and it's supposed to be light out. They go downstairs to like the dining area, and here you could see it says it was dimmer because there were phone crazies at every window, right? Sorry, I had like a distraction here. Phone crazies at every window that they could see, crowded up to the glass and peering at them. This is a really creepy to picture. Peering at them, dozens, maybe hundreds of those strange blank faces, most marked by the battles that they've been through, blah, 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 blah. Clay saw missing eyes and teeth, torn ears, bruises, burns, scorched skin, and hanging wads of blackened flesh. It's basically Night of the Living Dead, just standing there staring at them through the window, right? So they were silent. It kind of haunted avidity about them. You know, who wouldn't be freaked out by seeing something like that? And the feeling was back in the air, that breathless sense of enormous spinning power barely held in check. So that's the description of what they were feeling when the woman and the man were fighting over the Twinkies. He kept expecting to see their guns fly out or their hands begin to fire on their own or blah, blah, blah. And he basically ends up, they all back away from these windows, and it's almost like they want to show this group something. So Clay and Tom open the front door, and there's this guy in the red hoodie. Let me see if I could pull it up. But if you guys saw the movie, you know that the guy in the red hoodie is like the leader of the group. In the book, he's similar but different. He's also wearing a red hoodie. He is a black man with a red hoodie and a torn up face, and it says Harvard on the sweatshirt that he's wearing. So some people called him Harvard Man. Some people called him Raggedy Man, Red Hooded Man. In the book, he has a lot of terms. When they open the front door, Raggedy Man is standing there, and he doesn't speak, but Clay's like, what do you want? What do you want? And he does a motion like, wait, right? Mind you, this is the morning right after they blew up all the bodies. So after a few minutes, all of a sudden you start hearing people, living people, screaming, calling for help, saying, please, no. And it's so loud, but it's so far away. So basically what happens is now these phone zombies have the capacity for revenge, right? And so when Clay and his group blew up the bodies that were in that field, he knew that they knew, and they knew about what Clay and his friends did. So as revenge, they found all these people that were hiding in houses nearby. And as soon as they were able to get Clay and them outside to hear it, they started tearing them to pieces in the street. Later on, after they leave the academy, they go by all these bodies and they feel this enormous sense of guilt, blah, blah, blah. A second part to that in the book that you don't see in the movie, I mean, it's not even touched on in the movie, is the fact that Raggedy Man can insert himself into their dreams, but not just theirs, but everybody in the world who is still conscious. And when he does, he tells everybody in the world, this group right here, they belong to me. Don't touch them. This is what they did to, to my people at that football field. So this is why we did this to your people. And he gives them the mental dream image of what conspired at Gaiten Academy. He gives them the mental image of how Clay and his group blew up all the bodies and how they tore all these people to pieces because of what Clay and them did. So then, not only did he make Clay and his group aware that now every phone zombie knows who you are, but everybody who isn't a phone zombie knows what we had to do to people because of what you did. So he kind of basically isolates them and turns their own kind against them. To second that and makes this book even more creepy, after this whole interaction, the Raggedy Man basically tells Clay and his group, you're okay to leave. We're not going to hurt you. He just does this whole motion like, go ahead, right? And it's weird because they're used to hiding from them during the day. Now they pretty much can do whatever they want. After they close the door and they come to a realization that, this is horrible. They just killed all these people because of what we did. Clay realizes the headmaster's not down there with them. Then the horrible truth sinks in that, oh my God, he's dead now, and so as if it wasn't bad enough that Jordan had to see this interaction, now he's going to realize the headmaster's dead. And then it gets worse. Not only was the headmaster dead, it was not the way he thought it would be. As a matter of fact, I think I put it aside. So here's another thing that developed in the book that was not even an issue in the movie. The Raggedy Man and his people have a telepathic power that's so strong they can force the people that are conscious to do things. So, I skipped ahead. This is not a part that we handed over. Okay, so we're just going to go back to this. I'll just explain it to you real quick, and I'll show you what those last two tabs say. So, in the book, they can control what you do. So during the night, while everybody was asleep, they got into the headmaster's head. That's not a pun, but whatever. They got into his head and forced him to write a note in Latin talking about, it wasn't even sentences. It was the word insane written in Latin, Italian, French, German. It was written in like 14 different languages, just the word insane in all these languages. And then they forced the headmaster to take a pen. I have a pen here, and he stabbed himself in the eye with it. I laugh. I'm sorry. It's a fiction novel. I mean, it's not like anybody we knew died, but I used to joke all the time in school that I just want to take this pencil and stab myself in the eye because the subject was so boring. And then when I read this part in the book, I was like, well, maybe language was boring to the headmaster. But so that's another scary thought in the book that is not in the movie, is the fact that these phone zombies can get into your head and force you to do things without your control. So what's the next step? Oh, Alice's death. I remember now. So this one, okay, so this is a part that I skipped over. This was the note from Johnny to his dad, according to the book. And if you notice also here, Johnny had taped the note to the front door of the house. Before Clay even went inside the house, he had the note. And once he did go in the house, I don't even know if he went inside the house in the book because he had the note. So Clay didn't really, I don't even know if they went inside the house. So that was not part of the movie, is that, Clay went inside the house and then found the note, found his wife. In the book, he just finds a note on the door. So I'll close that. And then, okay. So here in this part of the book, Clay and Tom and Alice and Jordan are now on the road again, right? And they run across these guys that are just speeding down the highway. Apparently, every once in a while, people are able to get a hold of a car and they just start tearing across the state with it, right? And right here, Sprinter Reefs is a nickname that Jordan gave it. You know, it's just people jumping in the cars and taking off, right? So there were these two guys that were in a truck and they go speeding past or whatever. And then as they pass by Clay and his group, someone shouted, tell her, right? I guess they have that Boston accent. Tell her, right? And Alice is just whatever. And so basically they end up crashing. Alice goes over to help them, and then they recognize Clay, Tom, Alice, and Jordan as that group, right? And basically this is where Clay and Tom and Alice and Jordan realize that they have been broadcasted to everybody's mind that they are the people who blew up all the bodies. So Alice is trying to help this guy. He's being a dick. Even Clay and Tom here are trying to defend her, saying, considering what this young woman called you, you know, this young man called you on his way, you know, whatever. And Alice is still trying to help him. So whatever, they don't want her help. They end up taking off. They tell the group, look, you know, nobody wants anybody, you know, keep away from us. Nobody wants any of your help. You're the guys that got all those people killed. Screw you, right? And so Clay felt a sudden urge to shoot him. Gunner looked and acted like a dangerous dog, blah, blah, blah. And so he basically gets the best of them, right? And they tell him about the hooded guy, the Raggedy Man. They call him Harvard. And they have this exchange, you know, they call Alice a bitch. You better not even think about shooting us, Harold said. What you think Harvard would do to you if you shot us, you know, blah, blah. So they go on with this conversation, and Clay says, we're going now. I'd advise that you stay here at least an hour because you really don't want to see us again. So basically, F off, right? Oh, there it is, right there. F you. Okay. They don't like each other. So Clay tells him, I don't want to see you again. Well, they do see Gunner and Harold again. Later on, they're walking down the road and they're making their way. Somehow these two guys get in a truck, get ahead of them, right? And they end up driving by at full speed. And I missed the part right over here. Thought they were nondescript. Right here. They were in a nondescript Chevrolet sedan. Gunner was kneeling on the back seat, out the window to his waist, holding a ragged chunk of cinder block in his hands. He gave an inarticulate cry, could have blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and through the block, it flew a short, lethal course through the dark and struck Alice in the side of the head. Clay never forgot the sound it made. So, unlike the movie where they're in this bar, which is not mentioned in the book at all, Alice's demise started at the bar when she got struck in the back by the woman. But in the book, they have this unsavory interaction with these two guys that point them out as the people who got the group of innocent people killed because they blew up the zombies. And then, as revenge for humiliating them because Clay had a gun, they come back, throw a cinder block at Alice, and it gets pretty gory. Like half her head is missing, but she's still alive. They, the guys get away, and they pull Alice off the road and into the woods to just basically give her a peaceful place. And she dies very slowly. Like all these paragraphs are about her. You know, she never really passed out, never fully regained consciousness. She starts mumbling stuff. things like that. And that's nothing we have to worry about. And Jordan's saying, well, you're not supposed to move people with head wounds. Well, Clay knows she can't live, right? So they lay her on the grass and she's sitting there mumbling, Daddy told me I can have a rest, so don't blame me, blah, blah, blah. And at one point, I think Alice actually says something to them using, okay, it's not her own dialogue. At one point, she's so out of it, she's just mumbling. Then she clearly states something to them about how right here, the men in the car will be taken care of, not as a favor to you, but as a warning to others. You understand? And then Tom and Clay were like, oh my God, it sounds like she's awake. But then they realize it's not her. It's the guy in the red hoodie using her as a loudspeaker. So to wrap this up, basically what happens is later on, they will come across another group of people who point out to them, they say something like, well, we need to show you something. And they end up showing Clay and Tom the dead bodies of the two guys that did that. And from the way it looks, it's like the Raggedy Man got into their heads, forced one to crucify the other and gut him. It's disgusting. And then take himself with through the throat. So not only, it's kind of weird, like not only are this Raggedy Man and his group of phone zombies protecting Clay and his group, but they're also kind of like preventing them from killing any more of the phone zombies. So it begs the question, why? Like, why are they saving these people? So that's more to talk about, more to find out later in the book. And I'll try to make another one of these videos before I forget what happened. But we're at the half-hour mark. The cats are getting restless and they're driving me freaking insane. So I'm gonna end it here. And I think the next steps in the book is there's a lot more to the book. There's just so much more. They do meet a group of people, kind of like the movie. In the movie, there was a guy that was with a pregnant woman, Denise, and then her brother was a phone zombie. But in the book, it's a little different. So they do meet one last group that ends up with them at the end. So the ending in the book is completely different than the movie. The movie had left me really weirded out and wondering what's going on. The book, I would say it does have a twist, but it's not as bewildering. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to work on some more. Right now, I'm still finishing up reading Ready Player 2. Even though there's no movie, I think I might make some videos talking about the books that I read. So any of you kids out there that have book reports and you haven't read the book, I'll try to see if I can do these little book report videos in half an hour. So in half an hour, you can have the gist of the book, write a report, and that'll be my nod to you, because when I was a kid, I actually had to read the damn books. So good luck with that. Somebody did write to me and suggest that I do one of these videos comparing The Outsiders, because I mentioned that I had, when I was a kid and I had to do a book report, I would rent the movie The Outsiders because they also had the book. And that back then was pretty much one of the only movies that you could do a book report on using the movie. So let me know if you guys think of something else, a book that I could talk about. I'm always ready to read, and I'm almost done with Ready Player 2. So I need new material. Let me know. And you guys, thanks for joining me. If you have questions, write to me. My email, I feel kind of bad. I didn't put up any of the banners for you. So there's some information down at the bottom for you. A lot of these free books that I read online are from freenovelread.com. You just Google free novel read and it should come up. It doesn't have every book in the world, but it does have a lot of books to choose from. Be careful with them because some of them are a little more perverse. But there's my email down at the bottom, edwardrooster, one word, @outlook.com. And if you have a question, suggestion, or whatever, just write me and let me know. And we'll cover it next time. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me and listening to me ramble on, and I'll see you next time.